this is an event. That was the lights. Okay, nothing like energy efficient lights or whatever.
Do you want light or?
You can turn it off. It'd be easier for everybody to see the screen, I think. Well, again, thanks for coming. This is an event I look forward to every year. We do this in January every year, and as I will explain toward the end, this is the last time that I will be doing this, so I appreciate your being here. The subject every year essentially is what do we have to look forward to in the upcoming year. Now, given the state of the economy, you will not be surprised if you hear me say that there's not a lot of good to look forward to. I'm going to go through where we stand and where I think we're headed during the year economically, and also what the major issues are that the association will be dealing with and that Long Island will be dealing with. As we go along, if you have any questions, ask them as we go along, all right? It's sometimes difficult, but I cover a lot of ground. I'll mention a lot of facts and statistics, and sometimes it's difficult to remember questions from the beginning to the end. So we'll do this in a fairly casual way. If a question pops into your head about something that I'm talking about, feel free to ask it. And then at the end, given that this is the last time I'll do this, anybody has any questions about anything whatsoever, anything, I'd be happy to answer. So, the year ahead. How bad is it right now? Well, the job loss, November to November, that's 2008 to 2009, is 34,800. 34,800 is a large job loss, but we were at 44,000 on a year-to-year basis as of June. So you can see that the job loss rate is improving somewhat. That 34,800 represents about half of the total job losses that Long Island suffered during the recession of the early 1990s, which I'll talk about again. And the job losses are throughout all sectors of the economy. That means everything right now, including government. Usually you'll see a little increase in government, and all of the private sector categories are decreasing, but right now the losses are through all sectors of government. The unemployment rate most recently on Long Island was 6.8%. Remember, the national unemployment rate is about 10% right now. 6.8% is down from 7.2% a few months ago. So even in that category, the situation is improving slightly. Now keep in mind, of course, that when you get to an unemployment rate at that level, and certainly beyond that level, the unemployment rate doesn't necessarily reflect all of the unemployed people, because there are people who become discouraged and fall off the process. The unemployment rate only captures people who filed for unemployment with the relevant labor department. So the unemployment rate statistics are usually a little bit low compared to what is actually happening out there. And then you have people who are underemployed, who because of the economy are taking jobs that are below their skill level in order to survive. But 6.8% down from 7.2 compared to a national rate of 10% is, in the scheme of things, compared to many areas around the country, not too bad. Inflation is at 1.8% in the New York metropolitan area. That actually is an increase, and the increase relates to the cost of gas and the cost of oil for the most part. The rest of the market basket, all the things that comprise the consumer price index, have not increased very much, in most instances less than 0.5%, and that's a good thing. In fact, it's a particularly good thing that we are in inflation now, because for several months, about 6 or 7 months of 2009, we were in deflation, which is not a good situation to be in. A little bit of inflation is okay, deflation is a bad thing. Sales tax is down 3.4%. That's a combined figure for both counties. In November 2009, excuse me, that's a typo. This should say November 2009 compared to 7.1% in November 2008. So that reflects a little bit more consumer activity. In other words, a year ago, November, spending was down 7.1%. Now it's down 3.4%. That shows somewhat of an improvement in terms of consumer activity. Very important for Long Island's economy, as we'll get to later. Home prices are down now 0.7% in Nassau and 1.5 in Suffolk versus November 2008. Price declines appear to be ending. In other words, we appear to be, according to the economists, we appear to be at the bottom of the housing market now. And the housing market then presumably, hopefully, prayerfully, will start to come back up in the springtime. In certain markets on Long Island, the bonuses that were just paid on Wall Street will help that. So the housing market should begin to come back up, and inventories should continue to decline. So that's the overall picture of where we stand right now. One thing that I do like to do in this situation is to point out that we need to keep some perspective, and I'll explain what I mean by this in a few minutes. The perspective is historical. In the 70s bear market, inflation was 12%, and unemployment was 9% on Long Island. Just keep that history in mind. In the early 80s, inflation went to 15%, unemployment over 10%. The prime rate, anybody remember back then?
Yeah.
Prime rate was 21%. Now, in the early 1990s recession, we lost 84,000 jobs. The aerospace industry took most of that hit. Remember, Grumman shrank from 38,000 employees to 2,800 employees in the space of about 5 or 6 years. And hundreds of the feeder companies for Grumman literally went out of business or had to move into commercial markets in order to survive. We lost, on a net basis, 84,000 jobs, but we recovered all of those jobs by 2,000. That's a whole other story, how that happened. But the point is that we've been through this before under much worse circumstances than we're dealing with now. As painful as it is now, Long Island has been through it, and Long Island has gotten through it, come back, and increased its economic output in every circumstance that it has confronted in the past. So, how to look at the economy going forward? It appears as though the economy is bottoming out. Now, I've emphasized the word appears the way I did because there is still some debate among economists about whether or not there will be what's called a double-dip recession. In other words, will the recession kick in again as a result of a variety of factors? One of the factors that people are concerned about is defalcations on commercial leases, which may be a problem on Long Island and will be in other places in the country. Most economists do not think it's likely that there will be a double-dip recession, but there is still that possibility lurking in the back of some economist minds. So I point that out, but it appears as though the economy is bottoming out, but we're not yet in recovery. In other words, we haven't come back up the other side of the loop. Hopefully a V, maybe a U, hopefully not a W. You know how they describe recessions. We're probably in the bottom of a U-shaped recession. We're probably during most of 2010 going to be in the bottom of that U, not quite rising into a recession. Job losses that we are suffering are significant, but there are some other signs of improvement. Home prices and retail sales, as I mentioned. So, the real recovery will depend upon job creation. That is, we've got to move from a loss to a creation state. That means that businesses, particularly small businesses, given that this is a small business economy, have to be in a position in which they have the credit that they need and the business that they need and the confidence that they need to start hiring people again. And once they do that, particularly here, small businesses, once they do that, then the economy will begin to recover.
Give us, if you can, a little overview industry by industry. Who's doing better than others? I know obviously healthcare, but in terms of profits or in terms of health of the business, or however you want to look at it, what industries on Long Island aren't feeling it the same way as maybe others are?
Well, that's a fair question. Healthcare and education would be the two in general that have done a little bit better